everybody, and welcome to the Aggieville Alleycats podcast, where come rain, shine, or anything between, we're here to deliver to you the Kansas State sporting news that you so love. I'm Ace Edwards, right alongside
Connor Balthazar.
And welcome to a pretty stacked recruiting weekly recap, as well as the introduction to the men's catsketball team and some big volleycat victories. But let's just dive straight into the recruiting news, starting with the first commit of the previous week, and that is the 6'1", 190 wide receiver from Jarrell, Texas, Jacques Bradley Demps. This was another example of K-State flipping a recruit, this time from North Texas. We seem to have a pretty good track record of flipping guys from North or who are committed to North Texas. So hopefully this one works out just as well.
Yep, Kobe Savage,
yeah. But he's an on-3 3-star, an 88 3-star, an 87 3-star on 24/7. None of the other two sites do their research, so I don't care about them. Plus, the other two ratings are higher anyway, so it benefits my narrative. But what do you, just from the very onset, what do you think of Bradley Demps?
Well, Texas receivers, you always like that they're generally going to be going against high-quality competition in their high school ranks. And also, he's got really good speed. On a first view of his film, it's not super apparent, but that's just because he's a long strider, especially for his size. But for playing a lot of slot, he's a really good or decent route runner. He gets pretty good release. And he has a shockingly good, especially again for his frame, catch radius. And he's able to really twist and contort to make catches if he needs to. But there's a lot to like about him. But he's a very smooth operator in the slot. And he has a really good receiver name as well. I think we're going to take to calling him JSD just because Jacques Bradley Demps is a lot. He also goes by Debo, apparently.
Yeah.
Which, if he is half of Debo Samuel, I'm going to be very, very happy.
We take those!
Yes, we do.
But speaking of Debo, I'm not saying he is, but the play style that he exhibits is sort of similar, where he's someone who is a pretty physical player, but what he's going to try and do is try to work over the middle and just try to be that physical receiver who's going to break a tackle to try and, gain a few extra yards on a play, which is why he's such a good screen option. If you watch his highlight tape, as Connor pointed out to me before I even realized it, there's this one screen pass. It's like 7 times in his highlight tape, and it keeps working because he's breaking like 2 tackles every single time it's run.
Yeah, he's very elusive, has really good vision with the ball in his hand. That's something that Ace especially pointed out. But like him a lot. He's a playmaker, I think is maybe a good way to describe him. And I like the possibilities with that. That sounds like something that Avery Johnson could really work with.
Yeah, I agree with you. The archetype that most makes sense to him for me is playmaker. Not necessarily always on the outside, but someone who, while he probably does, he's a solid route runner for what he is now. He still has room to develop, especially with hip sync and things like that. That'll get worked out. Right now, he's just the prototypical, I'm going to catch the ball and I'm going to get you either 7 or an entire touchdown's worth of new yards. And there's a lot to be said because of the skill sets that like our young receivers have up to this point. You obviously have Jace Brown, who's the finesse route runner. You have Trey Spivey, who's going to be the true X receiver. You have Andre Davis, who's going to be the contested catch guy. Then you have Wesley Watson, who's going to be like the deep threat. We don't really have the playmaker archetype. Keegan Johnson is supposed to be the playmaker archetype, but he's been dinged up. At least I hope that's what it is. But yeah, this is a really good pickup, especially if you are a subscriber to the archetype roles as I am.
Yeah, good pickup. Again, we have good history with flips from North Texas. And he recently picked up TCU offer, a Baylor offer, and a Virginia offer, I believe. And those are all schools that want to air it out. And so that's a bit of an endorsement, I think, of his ability. So I'm pretty happy with this ad.
Yeah, I am as well. But I think the arguably, normally we don't talk about preferred walk-on add-ons. We have an exception, and that is Navarro Shunky out of Brandon Valley, or Brandon, South Dakota. Interior offensive lineman who is 6'5", 285. According to On3, he's an 88 3-star, but according to 24/7, he's a 94-star, and he's committing as a preferred walk-on.
Yes.
Seems good.
Seems good, in fact. It's been spread over Twitter, so I feel fine saying it. But the reason he's able to do preferred walk-on status is because he's getting a Native American scholarship. So he's going to school for free, air quotes, but he isn't. He doesn't have to have that scholarship. Supposedly, it's the connection between him and Connor Riley that he really liked, although there have been some indications that maybe he switches to the defensive side of the ball, but I really like him as an offensive lineman, honestly. Yeah, but he's a incredible wrestler, so I can totally understand the desire to put him at nose tackle, because he is a multi-time national title winner as a wrestler and probably could have wrestled anywhere in the country.
Absolutely.
If he wanted to. And Casey has a really good history of guys with wrestling backgrounds, like Will Geary, I think is the perfect example there of a wrestler. Although Will Geary is under recruited, this guy was not. He was a 4-star on 24/7, nearly that on 3. Nebraska was after him, as well as KU. But he's really, really good. This is a absolute steal as a preferred walk-on, because this is someone that we were pursuing as a scholarship athlete.
Yeah, because he's good enough to be that. Mm-hmm. And I like that you mentioned that he is a wrestler, because if you talk to any offensive line coach in the country, they are going to say, give me a wrestler on the interior. And a lot of that has to do with how wrestlers have to deal with leverage, especially on the inside, where you're basically in a phone booth most of the time. Like you're basically trying to gain leverage on someone in a phone booth when you're interlocked with one another. That's just playing guard. Like, that's playing guard and that's playing center. So, like, every offensive line coach in the country will take a wrestler. And let me tell you, in his film, you can tell. You can tell that he's a wrestler just because of how well he understands leverage, how well he understands, like, where to attack the weak point of a defensive lineman coming at him. And if I'm honest, I would much rather have him play offensive line. Would I be angry if he turned into a defensive tackle? Well, yes, because that would mean that like 5 people on the foundation would gloat about it, and I don't want to deal with it. But I wouldn't be mad from a pure player standpoint.
Yeah, I do agree, and I like that you brought up leverage, because I think that is what he brings to the table. That he's able to do at such a high level, and that makes his background as a wrestler all the more valuable. And his addition also makes this a pretty stacked offensive line class, even more so than it already was. He's the second 4-star addition into this offensive line class, along with Caden Massey, who recently achieved 4-star status on 24/7. So it's 4 offensive linemen now, and potentially one more. We'll see if anything ever happens with Grant Bricks, because that recruitment's been lasting a little longer than most expected it to, I think.
Yeah.
But of course, if he committed, he would be the crown jewel, I think.
Oh, absolutely. Like you're going into this next year with an offensive line that, like, a true freshman class that I honestly wouldn't hate, like, if they all had to start in their true freshman season. They won't. They will not have to, but I wouldn't hate it if they had to. Just because I think that's how inherently talented they are.
Yeah, I would much prefer we never have to do that. But, if you had to pick a offensive line class to have to fill out a starting lineup as true freshmen, you could do a lot worse than what we'd be bringing in, even right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Before we get into the other sports, here's a quick word from today's sponsor. And welcome back to this episode of the Aggieville Alleycats. It's a weekly recap, so here we go into the other sports, not football. And we're going to start by covering the men's catsketball. I about called it a scrimmage and exhibition. There is technically a distinction between K-State and Emporia State. K-State won 102-68. So we got the 100 burger, which, is good. You appreciate those. But we also got just about everyone on the roster significant, I'd say significant time. I'll go over the starting five if you don't mind.
Go for it.
All right. So Cam Carter was the starting point. He was played 24 minutes, 17 of 13 from the field, 2 of 7 from 3, 4 of 4 on his free throws. Did end up having 3 fouls, but 3 assists, 1 turnover, only 1 steal, 20 points. Then Arthur Kaluma played 28 minutes, 3 of 6 from the field, 1 of 3 from 3. Again, also perfect on his free throws, 3 of 3. 4 rebounds, 1 foul, 2 assists, 1 turnover, 1 block, 1 steal, 10 points. So he got a stat in every single stat there. Congratulations, King Arthur. Tyler Perry, 20 minutes, 3 of 11, 2 of 9 from 3, 2 rebounds, 2 fouls, 5 assists, 2 turnovers, 8 points. You'd like more, but sometimes when you have a high volume three-point shooter, you have off nights. David Gasson, 16 minutes, 3 of 4 from the field, a very funny 3-point attempt, 1 of 2 on his free throws, 4 rebounds, 4 fouls, 3 assists, 2 turnovers, 1 block, 7 points. And then Taj Manning rounds out the starting 5, 10 minutes, 2 of 3 from the field, 0 of 1 from 3, 1 rebound, 1 assist, and 1 steal for 4 total points. So, the standout is Cam.
Yeah, Cam was noticeably improved from last year, primarily in his ball handling skills and in his ability to attack and transition. I think those were the 2 major areas where we saw Cam Carter make a marked improvement. He was better at the ball in his hands. He looked more comfortable. And in transition, he didn't have a major miss on a layup, which last year when he was going right at the rim for an easy shot, you never knew if it was going to go down. But he went out of his way to not dunk it a couple of times in transition to work on making layups in transition. They all looked pretty comfortable. The staff, I think, has been pretty high on him since he got here, and he really exhibited some really good tendencies in the exhibition against Emporia State. I liked a lot of what we saw from Cam. Yeah. But beyond him, Tyler Perry, I'll take 2 of 9 from him. I want him to keep shooting as much as possible because that's just how good he was last year in North Texas. So if he's going to have some 2 of 9 games, I'll trade it for the 6 of 8 games. Yeah. So I'm not too worried about that from Tyler Perry. Kaluma was a little bit quieter than I expected him to be. Especially for him playing the most minutes, but he made a late 3. He scored one of the first buckets of the game. He looked pretty solid. Gasson just fouled a lot, had a nice lob dunk, and generally looked a little bit more comfortable than he did last year, I think. And then Taj Manning only played 10 minutes, but had a nice steal near the end of the game where he was playing defense out beyond the arc, which I did not expect to see from him. But he may end up being a really versatile defender that we didn't expect to have.
Yep.
But that takes us into the bench players, and we really emptied the bench in this game. We'll start with Jarrell Colbert. He played 14 minutes. He was perfect from the field because most of his shots were dunks, and went 3 or 4 at the free throw line as well. He had 5 rebounds, and then only 1 foul as well, although it shouldn't have been a foul. It was a clean block that he got dinged for. And he should have had 2 blocks, only had 1, and then added a steal, finished with 13 points. Day-Day Ames. Tyler Perry got into some foul trouble early, so we saw true freshman Day-Day Ames a little bit earlier than I thought we may. And he was really good. He didn't turn the ball over in his 20 minutes and had 3 assists. He was 5 of 9 from the field, which I did not realize he hit double figures. And he made a 3 as well. 3 rebounds, 3 assists, and 11 points for Day-Day. McCaleb, a.k.a. Buddy Rich, he came in and really kind of brought the house down, I think, in terms of his impact on the game. He had 4 buckets, and they were all right at the rim. He had 2 layups on offensive rebounds because he had 9 rebounds in just 13 minutes. And then he had 2 dunks, one in the first half, and then an unbelievable windmill dunk that honestly, when he did it, I think if you overlaid it with Keontae doing windmill dunks from last year, he probably was higher than he was.
Yeah,
almost certainly. Caleb Rich was, and his head was right up about to pass the rim. He looked like an athletic freak. I wasn't sure how much we'd see of him this year. I feel like he's maybe earned at least the right to not redshirt. Maybe that's me being selfish, but
you just want more yams.
Yes, I do. But he finished with 8 points. He did miss a dunk, unfortunately, but he kind of got caught under the rim, so it is what it is. And then he also had a steal, 2 assists, and just 1 turnover. Dorian Finisterre played 19 minutes. He had 7 points. He did have 3 steals, which is nice. Did have a couple of turnovers, 2 assists, 2 of 5 from the field, 1 of 3 from 3. I thought he was fine. He had 7 rebounds, mostly inoffensive, I thought. RJ Jones was 1 of 5 from the field, all threes. He did make a buzzer beater 3, though, at the end of the first half, which was pretty nice. And he added 5 points. I think we'll see some of him. Quez Glover played the fewest minutes, but it's because it looked like he banged his knee with somebody on a drive at one point, and it didn't sound like it was serious, but it was enough to just keep him out for the rest of the game.
Yeah.
So he only played 7 minutes, but he did make a 3, and he did have 3 assists, and looked pretty good. Emil McNair was the last guy. 10 minutes, 4 points, 5 rebounds, 1 turnover, 2 steals. Pretty solid game from him. He moved a little bit better than I was expecting, and he looked a little bit more comfortable in the offense with the team than I was expecting him to, given how late of an addition he was. Yeah. But if we can get that kind of stat line from him on the regular, I'm happy with that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, just, there's not a lot to say when you kind of obliterate a team like this, especially in exhibition.
Yeah.
But the 2 big takeaways was I'm not upset with 9 of 32 from 3. I wanted it to be a little better, but I think that's just something that will come with time. Sometimes you have nights where the shots just aren't falling, and I think this was one of those nights. The other thing was maybe I expected us to play a little faster, and maybe that's something we'll see in the future, because I think Tang mentioned it, right? He wanted to play faster.
Yeah. The thing is, I thought that we played plenty fast, so I kind of got the opposite reaction, where when Tang said he wanted to play even faster, I wasn't shocked, but I was like, oh, interesting, because I felt like we were playing faster. Maybe that's me still adjusting from playing much slower in the past, but I mean, there's a reason Emporia State scored 68, and it's a combination of they actually have some shooters, and we were playing at a very high pace, I think, and messing with a lot of lineups. But our pacing was pretty quick, although we did kind of get... I do agree with you, though. There were a few times where, especially in the first half, it felt like we kind of got stuck in the mud with some half-court offense and didn't get out in transition as much, but we seemed a little bit more comfortable in the second half.
Yeah, I agree. So that pretty much is the exhibition, and the next time you get to see the catsketball team play is up against USC in T-Mobile Arena down in Las Vegas, Nevada. Big game, a lot of eyes.
Yeah, this game being at 9 p.m. Central Time does kind of suck for some reasons, but the positive to draw from it is if the Monday night football game sucks, then this will be the time that people will know that it sucks, so they may switch over from Monday night football to this game potentially. But it's on TNT, so it'll be a big game. K-State obviously not having Naquan Tomlin, and USC won't have Bronny James, so a couple of stars missing, which I guess we probably need to talk about Naquan Tomlin a little bit. But USC, huge game. Looking forward to it. We'll learn a lot about the team, but I think we can briefly touch on Naquan. That Coach Tang basically said that he thinks it'll be a bonus if Naquan Tomlin plays this season. I was preparing myself for that. I was hoping it wasn't true, but if that is the case, I'm just going to operate under the assumption that he won't play this year until I have a reason to believe otherwise.
Yeah. Before I give my 2 cents on it, the Monday night game is going to suck. It's Jets Chargers, so
Well, great. So hopefully we are able to get some people to get bored of that game to switch over.
Yeah. But as for the Naquan situation, I don't want to dwell on it because I feel like a lot of people, I feel like there's nothing I can say that's like a nuanced opinion on this topic. We're not going to go into what happened, mostly because we don't even really know what fully happened.
No.
But yeah, I would treat Naquan coming back as a pleasant surprise if it were to happen. And I think it's best to just leave it at that for now.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at, and I don't really know what else to say. But, I mean, if that's what Coach Tang's saying publicly, I don't think he's one to embellish the details on that. I'm glad he's getting out ahead of it instead of the slap on the wrist stuff. Because, I mean, like, there needs to be some consequences and real discipline. So, again, we don't even know what actually happened, but I believe in his judgment. So,
yeah. If there's one thing I trust Tang on, it's his judgment regarding his players.
Mm-hmm.
But moving on from that, now we get to talk about the Alleycats. And wow, okay, we didn't expect 2 consecutive sweeps of number 8 in the country, and yet here we are. Where K-State, this is the only match they ended up, we have to cover this week at least, where they ended up sweeping number 8 in the country, BYU, 25-21, 25-22, and then 25-21. I don't really have anything to add. Just like, wow.
Yeah.
2 in a row, huh?
Yeah, it was one thing to sweep BYU once at home, but to take 6 straight sets from a very good BYU team, or at the very least a highly ranked BYU team, that does wonders for K-State's chances at postseason. And that made it, I think, 9 straight sets without a drop set for K-State. They had 3 consecutive sweeps at that point, and they generally just dominated BYU. The 2 victories over BYU for K-State, that made it, K-State's RPI jumped something like 35 or 36 spots from the low 90s up to 56.
Yeah.
So massive change for just a single week. And that put K-State from outside of the tournament contention to all of a sudden they were not just in the volleyball tournament bracketology, they were a seeded team in bracketology, which I didn't realize how the volleyball tournament did seeding, which shows how often we've been in the tournament recently. But they were seeded as an 8 seed. They seed, I think it's the top 8 schools in each region, and then everything below that is not seeded. So we would still be on the dreaded 8-9 line, unfortunately, but and we would be gearing up for I think the current bracketology is if we won our first match against whoever it is, we would be on a collision course for a rematch with Nebraska. So that's an interesting position to be in, but K-State has the opportunity to increase its resume even more. I did not expect our resume to improve that much with beating BYU twice, but that means the committee holds BYU in really high regard. So those wins are super valuable. And I'm very pleasantly surprised with where we sit right now.
Oh, yeah, I am as well. As for just this game in particular, Aaliyah Carter had 17 kills, and Aya Clinton had 16. And Aya Clinton is once again proving that when she's on, die. Like, there's nothing you can do about it.
And especially recently, it feels like she's been on more often than not. She's really turned a corner, it seems like.
Yeah, absolutely. Sydney Boulding had 5 kills as well. In terms of aces, Liz Grigorski and Mackenzie Morris each had 2, with Sydney Boulding having 1. Sydney Boulding had 5 blocks, and Aya Clinton had 3, and Izzy Sholszewski had 2. Izzy Sholszewski also had 37 assists, Mackenzie Morris had 2, and Liz Grigorski had 1. In terms of digs, Mackenzie Morris had 12, Simone Sims had 11, and Aaliyah Carter had 9. So once again, Aaliyah Carter coming in with the all-round stat line, and Simone Sims contributing pretty much just in this series so far.
Yeah, she had not played up until this series, I think. So she was on track to redshirt, but Jason Mansfield burns the red shirt and ends up playing her. The broadcast, Brian Smoller was saying that it was to improve our service reception, and that seemed to work pretty well.
Seems to have worked.
Yeah, so, and then also another big shout out to Izzy Sholszewski. She has been an unbelievable part of this team's success this year. And it's something where you can kind of get it from the stat sheet, but you really need to watch the games to get just how important she is to the team. Especially just some of those blocks that she gets, just huge momentum shifters, because a lot of times she's out on an island and gets a solo block, and she brings a lot of energy to the floor. She is a really important player to this team. The emergence of Anaya Clinton was incredible to watch in this series. She had like one attack error, I think, amongst the two games or something like that. Because I mean, she was just unbelievable. She went 16 of 33 with just one error against BYU in that most recent match. I don't think she had an error in the first one, and if she did, she didn't have many. So, pretty incredible stuff for K-State. They added several blocks as well, but just, this team is really gelling at the perfect time. Everybody's finding their role. We have Katie Fernholz on, I don't know what to call them, but it's like this like sweeping attacks where like they go cross court, and she's like kind of running to the set as opposed to like jumping straight up. I don't know what that's called, but she does that a lot, and it's been working better. Bolding's been a menace in the middle. Shulshevsky has been doing so good setting. Mackenzie Morris she's just doing the same thing she's always been doing. Aaliyah Carter is the main attack option. Anaya Clinton is an unbelievably reliable second option. And Brenna Schmidt comes in to be a true I don't know how to say this. She's like a paint defender in basketball, basically. She's like a defensive anchor. She's like a aircraft carrier center, but for volleyball. And she comes in and just deletes the middle. But this volleyball team is really fun to watch. They're really exciting, and it's been a treat to watch them get so much better, more cohesive throughout this season.
Yeah, and it happens so quickly as well. Like, at the beginning of the season, you could say that they were cohesive enough, but you could tell there were definitely flaws. The Nebraska and Lipscomb games definitely exposed those flaws, but ever since then, they've played like a pretty complete team, especially recently. And, you know, I think they may be hitting their stride at the right time going into one of the toughest parts of their schedule.
Yeah, and they're really already into the toughest part of their schedule. And I seem to remember after we lost to OU 3-2 in comeback fashion for OU, we were pretty much down in the doldrums about this team. And we were left saying, you know, if you really want to get in, you need to like sweep Texas Tech. And then like with this BYU, KU, Texas stretch, you need to like
win 4 is what we said.
Yeah, you know, win 4, but we had no idea. We didn't think that would happen. And we're already 2-0 here. We're about to go on the road to KU, and we'll have Texas at home on a Wednesday night. This is... We could not have started this stretch of the schedule any better, I think. So I'm pretty happy about how we're playing right now. And even if we end up missing the NCAA tournament, it's been a promising year for volleyball.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm just happy with the growth and the fact that, you know, even, I'm not saying this happens, because I think at this point, with just what we've shown, I think there's a pretty good chance of us making postseason. Knock on wood.
Yes, heavy knock on wood.
But a lot of this team's coming back next year, too.
Yeah, Aaliyah Carter's back. Shulshevsky is back. I'm not actually sure who all... I think Sydney Bolding may be the only person out of eligibility after this season. Brenda Schmidt's been coming along pretty well. Very different players, but we at least do have someone that can work in the middle. But it's going to be interesting to see how this team works in the transfer portal and who emerges, because we do have some roster space, I think. I think we do have some roster space still, because we had a pretty light bench the last couple of years. But yeah, we're in a much better spot right now than I ever expected us to be just 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, exactly. So that pretty much wraps up the actual news. Now we can talk about the wacky segment of the week. And this one's going to be pretty simple. Would you keep in mind, this is Bill Snyder Family Stadium. Still the same stadium. Would you rather have it only seat 30,000, but it traps all of the noise in nearly perfectly? Or have it seat 90,000 with pretty much the same ability to trap noise it is right now?
And this is assuming that we're not going to fill it if it's 90,000. Or are we assuming the stadium is getting filled every game?
That depends on how good the team is.
Okay, well then I'm probably going to say 30,000. Like, I don't know what we would do with a 90,000 seat stadium. I think that's way too big. I don't want a 30,000 seat stadium. That's small time and stupid, but given the option, that's probably the better choice. I'm happy with our capacity as things stand right now. We'll see if trends involving live sports attendance change, because I really hope so, because it's not looking great for the future, but K-State's still holding on strong. But yeah, I'll take the 30,000 with better sound.
See, I would actually take the 90,000. And the main reason I say this is because I personally would rather have too many seats than not enough. I know like sellouts are really important, but at the same time, I know I said that it would trap noise, like better, it'd be near perfect in the 30,000 stadium. However, I still think that nearly tripling that, assuming we get there, I think K-State would consistently fill at least probably 3/4, if not more, of, well, assuming we stay good. But I think we would consistently fill the majority of that. So I'd go with the 90,000.
If you had said 70, I maybe could have gotten on board. I don't think I can get on board with consistently mostly filling 90,000. I would love that. That would be like a dream come true, that many people are willing to pay money to go to K-State games every single weekend. But I'm a little skeptical of that, I guess. But I guess there's part of me that does prefer it to 30,000, because I feel like having a 30,000 seat stadium for a Power 5 in the year 2023 would be extremely embarrassing. But I also know that we would be constantly at Reddit CFB because we'd be tarping half of the stadium at times, because we just would not be able to fill a lot of the nosebleeds.
And they, for some reason, keep targeting us.
Yeah, so it's I don't know, interesting question, but I'm not really sure, I guess. I am sure. I think I'd rather have the 30,000, but I get what you're saying about having too many seats available, because I don't like turning people away, but, prices have been going way up for attending sporting events, which has a whole separate issue, I guess, but yeah, I'll take the 30,000 with the guaranteed sound, but I'd rather just keep it the way it is.
Yeah, I think that's preferable as well. Any final thoughts?
No. Other than legend says that Buddy Rich is still in the air and still going up.
Legend also says that the day this comes out is the or the women's catsketball exhibition. That
it is. Really exciting. So happy for the to see the women's team get underway. They've got the Wildcat script uniforms. I hope they only wear them and don't wear the base Nikes ever again. But that's just me.
Yeah. But that pretty much wraps up this episode of the Aggieville Alleycats podcast. Thank you all so much for listening. If you want to follow or contact the show, you can follow us just about anywhere at Aggieville Alleycats. If you want to email us, we're aggievillealleycats@gmail.com. If you want to follow us on a more personal note, I'm at ACEdward00.
I am at Connor Baltasar, capital C, capital B.
And if you want to support the show financially, please be sure to check out the official Aggieville Alleycats merch store. Link in our Twitter and podcast bios. But most importantly, thank you all for listening to this episode of the Aggieville Alleycats podcast. Where come rain, shine, or anything in between, we're here to deliver to you the Kansas State sporting news that you so love. Stay safe, Alleycats.